What if you were being prepared for something grand while you sleep? Imagine closing your eyes at night and, unknowingly, crossing the veil of reality to receive silent instructions, hidden maps, symbolic messages delivered by faceless voices. Many believe that dreams are just fragments of the mind, but what if for some they are secret invitations? Invitations to remember who they truly are. There are intriguing accounts of silent disciples scattered around the world who for centuries have received guidance, teachings, and revelations through dreams. Not by coincidence, but by design. An invisible order guided them. A spiritual brotherhood that never left public records, but whose actions echo between the lines of history. These dreamlike experiences did not occur by chance. They came loaded with patterns, numbers, symbols, star maps, and indescribable sensations. Those who received such messages reported a profound change in their world perception. It was as if they had connected to something much larger, a field of wisdom that transcended time and space. Many of these people, over the ages, never met personally, but their accounts coincide with stunning accuracy. And this raises a powerful question: could there be an intelligence coordinating this invisible flow of wisdom? Various ancient manuscripts allude to societies that trained initiates to become sleep travelers. These disciples were taught to remain conscious during deep sleep, a practice that today would be associated with lucid dreaming. It wasn't fantasy. It was technique. It was spiritual discipline. Their bodies rested, but their consciousness wandered through invisible temples where energetic instructors guided them between veils and dimensions. They received codes, instructions, and visions, not always with explanations, but always with purpose. Upon awakening, a vague memory transformed into sharp intuition, accurate decisions, the right words, as if something within them had been reprogrammed overnight. The most surprising thing is that these accounts don't just come from isolated cultures. Peoples separated by oceans and millennia, such as Egyptians, Mayans, Essenes, Vedas, and Druids, have left similar symbolic records. In their myths, gods or beings of light would come at night, whisper secrets, and sow futures. Could all this be the result of an archetypal coincidence? Or could there be a silent order operating behind the scenes of human consciousness, activating a select few in each generation? In the Egyptian tradition, there was the concept of Ka, a part of the being that wanders during sleep, interacting with higher planes. The ancient Essenes believed that in a state of purity, the spirit was instructed while the body rested. The Greeks revered dreams sent by Asclepius, the god of healing, as divine communications. In African tribes and among Andean shamans, sleep was considered the most fertile time to receive true visions. It is at this point that a pattern begins to emerge. We are not talking about simple dreams, but about invisible spiritual initiations. And who would be the mentors behind these experiences? Oral and written records from various lineages point to the existence of masters of sleep, non-physical entities or consciousnesses whose mission would be to transmit forgotten wisdoms, hidden from the world's eyes, but accessible to the prepared soul. These masters do not belong to a specific religion. Their language is universal, the language of symbols, numbers, geometry, energy. They do not impose, they simply deliver, and those who are awake enough recognize. The inevitable question arises: why would this happen during sleep? Because it's when the ego quiets down. It's when the rational defenses of the conscious mind fade away and the true self, free from conditioning, can emerge. Sleep then becomes a sacred sanctuary, a silent gateway between the visible and the invisible. And it is precisely for this reason that this order operates in the dark, not out of malice, but subtlety. Their messages are intended for those who can hear without hearing, see without seeing, understand without words. But this silent performance does not mean passivity. The order of awakening, as many have called it, performs active work. It trains, corrects, guides, and awakens. Not through dogmas or doctrines, but through internal activations, adjustments in the energy field, strange synchronicities that change life paths. The disciples initiated by dreams often experience ruptures with their old realities. They lose jobs, end relationships, change countries, not because of a crisis, but due to realignment. It's as if a new internal compass emerges, pointing to a destination they do not yet know, but feel. These processes, however, are not easy. Many report nights of intense dreams followed by days of confusion. Others go through true dark nights of the soul, where everything seems to fall apart. But deep down, there's a subtle force that drives them to continue. The order doesn't promise comfort. It promises awakening. And awakening is not always kind. It deconstructs illusions, breaks masks, dissolves the false security of automated life. The price? Courage. The reward? Clarity, purpose, truth. This clarity, however, does not come from the mind. It comes from feeling. That's why the codes delivered during sleep are not immediately understood. They are seeds. They are keys that slowly fit into internal locks, opening doors to an ancestral knowledge which has always been there, but dormant. Therefore, the real challenge for these disciples was not to remember the dreams. It was to trust what emerged from them. It was to act without evidence, to feel without guarantees, and this required a faith that went beyond belief, a faith anchored in the intimate experience with the invisible. As we delve into these stories and evidences, one idea grows stronger. Perhaps the true spiritual school isn't found in books, temples, or human masters. Maybe it unfolds silently in the night theater of consciousness. And maybe, just maybe, you've been summoned without realizing it. You may have received codes during sleep, dismissed as mere daydreams. But now, upon hearing this, something stirs within you. An echo, a vague memory, as if all this has been said before, there, in that old dream you could never forget. And it's just the beginning. In the next stage, we're going to dive into the most intimate details of these special dreams. Dreams that were not just dreams, but true transmissions of encoded wisdom. Many of those who have experienced these mysterious states assert with conviction, that was not a common dream. It was real, more real than the waking world. And it is precisely this feeling that begins to separate simple mental daydreams from encoded spiritual experiences. A common dream fades with the passing of hours. A transmission remains etched in the soul, reverberating like an old song, whose sound is not forgotten, even without knowing how to explain the lyrics. Some wake up crying, laughing, or in total quietude, as if they had received a revelation they cannot express in words. In these cases, the dream is not merely symbolic, it is instructional, it awakens. The so-called transmission dreams carry an unusual energetic density. They do not follow the logic of the common subconscious. Often they occur in places that do not exist in the physical world, but have an architecture that refers to temples, pyramids, columns of light, portals. The faces of the entities are often obscured, but the sense of familiarity is absolute. There are also recurring elements such as unknown languages, floating symbols, pulsating lights, and words that vibrate within the body, rather than being heard with the ears. Reports show that these experiences repeat in different cultures and times, as if a universal language was being used to teach beyond the veil of time. There is a fundamental difference between a mental dream and a spiritual dream. The former is chaotic, scattered, a result of the day's tensions and desires. The latter is orderly, vivid, structured like a ceremony. Initiates report that in these dreams they were taught by silent beings who pointed out images, drew patterns in the air, showed visions of the past and future. Others felt that they were in learning rooms, as if they were students in a school of another dimension. All of this during sleep, with an almost unbearable clarity, as if the body slept, but the soul was fully awake. The altered states of consciousness accessed during these dreams resemble what is now known as lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences. Science is beginning to delve into this, but the ancients already mastered such practices with ritualistic precision. The Vedas spoke of swapna, the dream state where the soul could meet the gods. In Tibet, monks trained in the dream yoga, a secret discipline that allowed expanding lucidity during sleep to achieve spiritual awakening. These methods were not aimed at entertainment. They were sacred paths of self-knowledge. Within these traditions, spiritual dreams were not considered passive experiences. The disciple was prepared for them. The diet was adjusted, the body purified, the mind quieted. Practitioners slept with clear intentions, offered prayers to unseen masters, and cultivated meditative states before rest. In doing so, they created a vibrational field conducive to contact. The communication was not random. It was a response to a silent call. And as in any advanced school, only those prepared received the deepest content. A recurring point in all accounts is the sensation that time operates differently during these transmissions. A dream of a few minutes in earthly time can contain hours of learning. This challenges our linear understanding of reality, but aligns with contemporary theories of quantum physics, which suggest that time is not absolute, but relative to consciousness. Thus, these dreams may be momentary accesses to states of reality, where time bends to allow a plunge into vast oceans of wisdom. Another fascinating aspect is the spontaneous emergence of symbols and languages that the person has never consciously studied. Many dreamers report writing strange symbols upon waking, languages that were later identified as ancient characters, such as Archaic Hebrew, Sanskrit, or forms of writing that don't even have a current translation. Some see numbers arranged in geometric shapes, as if they were mathematical keys. Others wake up with songs or words that become personal mantras, intuitively used for healing and alignment. Interestingly, these signs also begin to manifest outside of dreams. It's common for the initiate, after these experiences, to see numerical repetitions, meet people who complete parts of the dream, receive synchronized messages through books, videos, or seemingly casual encounters. It's as if the three-dimensional reality begins to respond to the new frequency of the awakened soul. As if the codes received in dreams have reprogrammed their field, attracting experiences consistent with the new vibration. Among modern mystics, there are those who believe that these dreams are part of a collective activation system, a wave call carried out by the secret order to awaken key individuals at this point in history. The messages come in a fragmented way, delivered to different people around the world, and together they form a large mosaic. This network awakening would explain why so many people, without contact with each other, start to report similar dreams with identical symbols, correlated visions, and unified sensations. The veil is collectively tearing, one dream at a time. However, discernment is needed. Not every vivid dream is a transmission. There are traps, confusions, mental noises. The ego can interfere, creating misguided interpretations. Therefore, true disciples learn to listen with their hearts, to silence the judgments of the mind, and to recognize the energetic signature of a real contact. This is the true initiation, distinguishing between the dream that distracts and the dream that awakens. And this skill can only be developed in practice, with humility and persistence. If there is something common among all authentic accounts, it is the transformation that follows. The initiate changes their way of seeing the world. They perceive the invisible patterns of life, the hidden messages in encounters, symbols, repetitions. Reality becomes a mirror of the invisible, a theater where the visible stages what the invisible directs. And upon recognizing this, they understand. The dreams were not dreams. They were lessons. They were seeds planted in the fertile field of consciousness. And now that we've opened this door to the details of dream transmission, the next step leads us to discover who exactly is behind these nocturnal instructions. Who are the guides, masters, and silent orders orchestrating this cosmic symphony? Let's delve into the secret corridors of the silent order. Silent, invisible, but absolutely present. The Order of Awakening, or as some call it, the Brotherhood of Sleep, has never operated under human flags or hierarchies. Unlike religious institutions, it did not have physical temples or visible sacred books. Its temple was the invisible, and its scripture the symbolic. Those who joined it did not do so by external invitation, but by an irrepressible inner call, received in the intimacy of deep sleep. The order did not seek disciples. It recognized them, silently, by vibration, not by appearance. For centuries, those who received these transmissions described a consistent pattern. After a certain number of encoded dreams, a new phase would emerge, the contacts would intensify, and a type of guide figure would frequently appear. This was not an ordinary mentor, but a living archetype, a guardian of the threshold. These beings, often androgynous or shrouded in light, did not reveal names or identities. They conveyed knowledge through gestures, symbols, and vibrational atmospheres. It was through them that the initiate would transition from dreamer to awakened disciple. Many scholars have tried to identify these entities as angels, ascended masters, or projections of the higher self, but all genuine accounts insist there was an autonomous, coordinating intelligence silently operating behind these apparitions, an invisible, highly organized structure connecting dreams around the world like pieces of a multidimensional board. This was the Order. Its power lay precisely in not being seen, for by avoiding the physical world, it prevented corruption, ego, external worship. Its mission was not to be followed, but to be remembered. The history of humanity is filled with traces of this order, disguised in myths and legends. In ancient Egypt, there was the mysterious House of Life, where priests slept in temporary sarcophagi to receive divine instructions. Among the Essenes, they spoke of the Children of Light, beings who instructed the righteous during sleep. The Rosicrucians, in their encrypted manuscripts, mentioned the existence of a hidden wisdom stream that operated without visible masters and without physical headquarters. The same is repeated in Druidic, Tibetan, Indigenous, and Sufi traditions. All, in their own way, spoke of an invisible school, which taught beyond words. When investigating these historical parallels, it becomes clear that the Order culturally adapts, yet maintains the core of its work, the awakening of consciousness through subtle transmission. Its teachings are not doctrines, but personal revelations. It activates, but does not directly instruct. It suggests, but does not impose. And it's this paradoxical lightness that makes it so effective. Like a melody heard in a dream that changes the entire perception of reality without ever being logically explained, the Order touches what is unnameable. It does not form masters. It forms beings who remember what they have always been. Within this structure, disciples never meet on the physical plane in an organized way. However, intriguingly, many report having encountered other human beings in dreams who, upon waking, had also experienced the same scene. These are called shared dreams. Science still cannot explain this phenomenon, but the reports are plentiful. They show that there is a kind of subtle network where consciousnesses connect beyond time and space, a sort of nocturnal symphony orchestrated by something greater. The instructions received in these dreamlike encounters are usually not explicit. They are symbolic experiences, spiritual trials, symbolic initiations. One disciple may dream of crossing a labyrinth, another of climbing a mountain, another of diving into dark waters and emerging enlightened. Each symbol is a vibrational code that activates something within the being. The Order does not speak to the mind, it speaks to the spirit. Therefore, its messages cannot be read, only recognized. One of the central elements of this Order is secrecy. The experience is only legitimate if the disciple goes through it with humility and discretion. There is no vainglory, titles, or followers. The true initiate never announces himself. His behavior changes, his sensitivity sharpens, his presence becomes healing. He becomes a silent point of light in the world, radiating without imposing, guiding without appearing. This is part of the Order's code. Wisdom is not meant to be shown, but to be lived. Only in this way can it perpetuate without becoming corrupt. Some initiates report that, after years of recurring dreams, they received a kind of internal symbol, an energy seal, that confirmed their entry into the Order. Others speak of a striking dream where they heard an enigmatic phrase which guided them throughout their life. One of them reported, "I was told, 'You are already what you seek. Now, just remember.' Since then, their life has completely changed. They abandoned the external search and began to live in full surrender, as if they already knew the way, even without maps. As the years go by, many of these awakened disciples become silent guides for other seekers, not necessarily as masters or therapists, but as vibrational reference points. They live in greater alignment with the flow of life, attract synchronicities, and even without speaking, they inspire. The order accompanies them, but never interferes. Its action is invisible, but constant, like a breath on the back of the neck in difficult times, like a warmth in the chest in the face of an important choice, like a whisper that says, "Remember." The Silent Order is not an institution. It is a spiritual intelligence which operates through dreams, symbols, and resonances. It doesn't ask for faith, nor does it demand proof. It simply delivers. It simply touches. And those who are touched know. Not because they understood, but because they recognized. And this recognition changes everything. In the next section, we are going to delve into even deeper territory, the star codes. Could the origin of these messages be solely human? Or might we be dealing with frequencies that come from civilizations beyond Earth? There comes a point in the journey of every disciple of the unseen where the question imposes itself. What if these teachings are not merely the result of hidden human lineages, but instead of intelligences that transcend our planet? Many of those who receive the codes during sleep report sensations, symbols, and atmospheres that do not fit into any known terrestrial spiritual system. These are experiences marked by moving geometries, sounds impossible to reproduce, languages without any known phonetic root, and landscapes that do not resemble either heaven or earth. The conclusion that imposes itself on many is inevitable. These messages may be of stellar origin. This hypothesis is not new. Ancient civilizations such as the Dogons in Africa already spoke of stars invisible to human eyes as the source of their knowledge. The Egyptians, in turn, claimed that their gods came from Orion and Sirius, and that the pharaohs were incarnated stars. Among the Mayans, records point to guides that came from the sky in light ships and delivered wisdom to the chosen people. These accounts, despite being geographically separated, share almost identical symbolic patterns, which raises the possibility of a single extraterrestrial source of origin, which operated at different times in history to activate human groups ready to receive. In dream transmissions, many disciples report being taken to spaces that do not resemble schools or temples, but rather spherical chambers suspended in the air, structures floating amidst multicolored mists, or platforms of light where tall, luminous, and silent beings await them. The environment is enveloped in absolute silence, but there is intense communication, not through words, but through vibrational telepathy. The mere presence of these beings conveys knowledge, peace, and sometimes a deep longing for a home that the mind does not recognize, but the heart remembers. The content of these transmissions also suggests a cosmic origin. Often, the disciples receive fragments of star maps, complex numerical sequences, or three-dimensional structures that spin, collapse, and reconfigure before their inner eyes. Some wake up and attempt to draw such shapes, only later discovering that they resemble patterns of sacred geometry or schemes of quantum fields. Others hear names they had never heard before, such as Alcyone, Arcturus, Antares, Vega, and only later find out that these are real star systems. How can this be explained without considering an origin beyond the earthly plane? Science still hesitates to recognize consciousness as an interplanetary force, but ancient traditions already understood this intuitively. In Vedic Hinduism, the rishis, wise seers, were considered receivers of celestial chants coming from higher spheres. Gnostic texts speak of the aeons, cosmic creating intelligences that shape reality with frequency and sound. Meanwhile, records from shamanic cultures speak of star ancestors, who visited dreams to deliver healing tools and instructions for the future of humanity. All these cultures knew there is an intelligence that observes us and sometimes teaches us from the stars. The role of sacred geometry is another common point between code dreams and the star hypothesis. Many disciples report seeing rotating shapes composed of triangles, spirals, cubes, and moving fractals. Some of these structures coincide with patterns like Metatron's cube, the Flower of Life, or the Tesseract. They are more than just beautiful designs, they are multidimensional keys. These shapes carry frequencies. When seen or felt in altered states, they activate dormant parts of consciousness, aligning the being with the original matrix of the cosmos. It's as if the soul, upon recognizing such structures, realigns itself with the original blueprint for which it was created. Another recurring factor in these accounts is the activation of the physical body after dreams. Many initiates wake up with vibrations in the chest, mild tremors, sensations of warmth in specific areas such as the nape of the neck, the center of the forehead, or the base of the spine. Others report feeling as if cells were reorganizing internally. These reactions suggest that star codes are not just philosophical instructions, they are impulses for energetic and perhaps even genetic reprogramming. Modern science is beginning to study how sound frequencies and lights can modify cellular structures. The ancients, however, already knew that certain sounds, mantras for example, alter the state of being. The difference is that the star codes seem to be personalized. Each disciple receives what their soul can assimilate. There are also cases of dreams in which the Earth is shown from space, wrapped in networks of light or enveloped in a golden mesh that connects specific points. In these visions, it is common for the initiate to perceive that there is a planetary network of consciousness, as if awakened souls were anchoring points for a larger transmission. These points, when activated, begin to connect with each other through synchronicities, encounters, shared dreams. It is the mesh of awakening being woven by invisible hands, or perhaps stellar ones. The most intriguing thing is that these experiences often arise during moments of spiritual transition. They are not sought after, but they come, as if there was a higher orchestration guiding the right time for each awakening. For some, it happens after a deep crisis, for others, at the peak of a consciousness expansion, and for some, unexpectedly, like a mysterious visit on any given night. But everyone reports the same thing after the experience. I was never the same again. And it's not about belief. It's about perception, cellular memory, rescue. Ancient civilizations did not view the cosmos as a collection of distant celestial bodies. They knew that the sky influenced the earth and that the human soul carried within it a spark of the stars. As Hermes Trismegistus said, "As above, so below." If there are masters in dreams and codes in sleep, it is possible, and even likely, that these contents are not limited to our plane of existence. They could be transdimensional messages, delivered to beings prepared to receive them. And in recognizing the possibility of a stellar origin for these codes, we are not denying their spiritual depth. We are expanding it. For perhaps awakening is not just a return to the soul, but also to the galaxy, to the stars from where we came, to the mission that brought us here. And if it's true that we receive instructions during sleep, perhaps we are being prepared not just to remember who we are, but to remember where we came from. In the next stage, we'll delve into an even more intimate and practical aspect. How did these disciples prepare themselves to receive the codes? We will explore the secret rituals, the energy practices, and the mental postures used to transform sleep into a true sacred ceremony. For those who understand that sleep is much more than biological rest, a fundamental question naturally arises: how to prepare to access these invisible codes. Most of humanity falls asleep in imbalance, immersed in stimuli, poorly processed emotions, and accelerated mental patterns. In this state, the energy field closes, making sleep merely an escape for the physical body. But for the initiates of the silent order, each night is a temple, each pillow an altar. Sleep transforms into a sacred ritual, and the guardian of sleep is not just a metaphor. It is a living force that protects, filters, and guides the soul to spaces of revelation. Before receiving any transmission, the disciple learns that the quality of their vibrational state upon falling asleep defines the door they will pass through. This is not superstition. It's subtle physics. The human body's electromagnetic field is sensitive to mental, emotional, and environmental patterns. If the mind rests in gratitude, silence, and presence, the vibration rises, facilitating contact with higher planes. That's why initiatory traditions prescribed rigorous nighttime routines. Herbal baths, prayers, chanting of mantras, conscious breathing. These were preparations not for the body, but for the soul. Diet was also considered a key factor. Fresh, natural, and unprocessed food was favored. Heavy meats, dairy, and processed or industrialized foods were avoided, especially at nightfall. The masters knew that everything that enters the body impacts the subtle energy flow. Eating poorly before sleeping is like polluting the spring before diving in. That's why light fasting or ritual meals were common among those seeking lucid dreams and clear transmissions. The body becomes more sensitive, and sleep deeper and more accessible. But it wasn't just about what was eaten, it was also about what was thought. Before sleeping, the disciples practiced conscious mental emptying. They reviewed the day, thanked for the experiences, and asked for emotional release from any negative load. This vibrational cleansing dissolved psychic noises that could interfere with the reception of the codes. Some lineages used crystals, others essential oils, and others simply the power of silence. The goal was the same: to harmonize the lower bodies, physical, emotional, and mental, so that the soul could ascend to the planes where the masters of the order awaited. There were also specific postures for sleeping. Some traditions suggested lying on the left side, others on the right. The fetal position was considered protective, while the posture with arms open and palms facing upwards was seen as a total surrender. The most important thing, however, was not the position itself, but the vibrational intention. The disciple would fall asleep with a clear purpose: I am ready to receive. This intention, emitted from the heart, was like a subtle signal sent to the order, a vibrational call that opened communication with higher planes. The presence of the so-called guardian of sleep was perceived as a mild warmth, a welcoming presence, or even a slight pressure in the environment. It was not a visible being, but a protective consciousness. Its role was to ensure that upon falling asleep, the initiate would not be captured by chaotic planes or external mental interferences. The guardian acted as a filter. Only what was legitimate and authorized by the order could access the dream field of the disciple. This concept is similar to that of guardian angels, but with a more specific and vibrational function. It does not guide decisions in waking life, but protects the sleep portal. For some, the guardian would reveal itself after a certain number of dedicated practices. For others, it would spontaneously appear during spiritual crises, as a sign that something greater was overseeing the process. In both cases, its presence coincided with a change in the quality of dreams. They ceased to be scattered and became clear, symbolic, coherent. One began to dream in sequence, like chapters of a sacred story. And, little by little, the initiate would realize that they were being instructed, examined, and guided, even without seeing the faces of their mentors. Breathing was one of the most important practices. Before falling asleep, many practiced what we now call heart coherence. Slow, deep, and rhythmic breathing, aligning heart and mind. This practice calmed the nervous system and tuned consciousness with the unified field. Others chanted sacred syllables, primordial sounds like Om, Ra, Yam, not just as a chant, but as vibrational technology. Each sound activated an energy point, and the body became a conscious antenna. By falling asleep in this state, the disciple transformed into a receptive instrument. The order also taught the art of symbolic intent, the use of mental images to guide experience. Before sleeping, the initiate would visualize a door of light, a golden pyramid, or a translucent mirror. These symbols were not random. They were archetypal keys that prepared the mental field to receive images of the same nature. It was like tuning an instrument before a concert. The dream world is symbolic, and those who enter it with the correct symbol in mind connect more easily with the higher realms. The practice of dream notation was essential. Upon waking up, even with eyes closed, the disciple would note everything: images, words, sensations, emotions. Nothing was discarded. Over time, patterns began to emerge. Symbols repeated, words returned, numbers appeared in sequences. Through this dream diary, the disciple recognized the teachings and understood his own learning path. It was common that after weeks of notation, he would realize he was receiving fragments of a larger language, like pieces of a subtle puzzle. These practices did not require dogmas, complex rituals, or affiliations. They demanded only one thing: conscious presence. Sleep ceased to be an escape and became a portal. And in this portal, visions, contacts, activations appeared, all perfectly orchestrated, as long as the intention was aligned with the truth of the soul. By sleeping with reverence, the disciple not only rested, he crossed over. He accessed. He remembered. And as this preparation became a habit, dreams turned into living temples. It was possible to understand the symbols, recognize the mentors, and even converse with them. Sleep ceased to be the end of the day. It became the beginning of the true journey. And a new question arose in the heart of the initiate. What do these symbols want to reveal to me? This leads us to the next stage, the decoding of the signs. The codes received during sleep do not arrive as dictated sentences or direct instructions. They manifest through a language that defies linear logic and ignores the boundaries of reason. It's a language made of living symbols, archetypal images, sounds that echo within the body, moving geometric shapes, and unexplainable sensations that linger even after awakening. It's the language of awakening. It was not created by any culture, but predates all of them. It is present in myths, in collective dreams, in mandalas, in sacred alphabets, and in the whispers of the soul. It's an ancestral language that speaks without words. This language expresses itself clearly where the mind falls silent. Unlike human languages, which rely on conventions, the language of awakening operates through recognition. When a symbol appears in a dream, such as a snake, a ladder, a flaming circle, or an 8-pointed star, what matters is not what the symbol means intellectually, but what it awakens within. The symbol is an energetic seed. It touches a dormant part of the soul and invites it to remember something it has always known. It is a vibrational nudge towards expanded consciousness. Among the disciples of the order, the interpretation of dreams is never literal. A number can be a frequency. An animal can be a guardian. A portal may represent a decision in real life. Everything is coded, and the code is personal. That's why dreams are unique to each initiate, even though they share universal structures. There is a vibrational grammar in the invisible plane, but its translation depends on the level of consciousness of the receiver. Two initiates can dream of the same symbol and receive completely different understandings, and both be correct. Many codes appear in the form of numbers. Sequences such as 111, 333, 1212, 1111, or 144 are common among the awakened. This is not about superstition, but about vibration. Each number carries a specific energetic charge and activates certain frequencies. The first evokes the beginning, the divine spark. The 3 represents the creative trinity. The 11 is the portal between worlds. The 144 is linked to sacred geometry and the activation of soul groups on a mission. When these numbers appear repeatedly in dreams, signs, or clocks, the order is signaling that something is moving behind the scenes. They are vibrational reminders that awakening is underway. In addition to numbers, sounds emerge, but not ordinary sounds. Many initiates report hearing tones that resonate within the body, as if every cell vibrates simultaneously. These are frequencies that heal, align, deprogram. Some resemble Gregorian chants, others Tibetan mantras, and others still are completely new. In some cases, the sound is accompanied by a word that echoes with such force that it becomes impossible to forget. Words like Anu, Soham, Rael, Kodo, Ishtar, words that are not learned but recognized. They do not inform, they transform. The images accompanying these sounds are equally powerful. Some appear as infinite spirals, others as cosmic eyes, winged beings, pulsating 3-dimensional geometric figures. Many of these images are identical to those we find in visionary art, such as in the stained glass windows of cathedrals, in the designs of crop circles, in shamanic tapestries, or in the guided meditations of ancient traditions. They come from the same archetypal field, and their purpose is the same: to activate deep layers of the being, dissolve the ego, and expand perception beyond duality. There are also the moving symbols. These are particularly rare and powerful. They appear in dreams as glyphs that spin, transform, and merge with the environment. In some cases, they seem to tattoo themselves onto the initiate's body during the dream. Upon awakening, the sensation that the symbol is still present is so intense that some feel heat or tingling on the skin where it appeared. These moving symbols are considered living codes, conscious expressions of the order, acting as energetic catalysts. They do not just inform, they reprogram. The real key to decoding this language is not in the analytical mind, but in the intelligence of the heart. The heart is the first organ to form in the embryo, and many mystics consider it the true spiritual brain. It feels what the mind cannot understand. Therefore, the symbols of the order are understood not by study, but by resonance. Upon seeing or hearing something coming from these dreams, the heart warms up, beats differently, knows. And in this knowing, something moves, like a door that opens, revealing a new level of consciousness. That's why, among the awakened disciples, the focus is not on seeking external meanings, but on cultivating inner silence. By quieting the mind, the codes received during sleep blossom on their own. They slowly integrate, like a healing that happens from the inside out. It's not about interpreting, it's about allowing. Trusting that there is a greater intelligence operating through these symbols, guiding each being to their own truth. Some of these symbols are shared by all of humanity. The spiral, for example, appears in every culture, from DNA to galaxies. The triangle, the circle, the cross, the lotus flower, the coiled serpent. They are archetypes of the soul, imprinted on the collective unconscious. When they appear in dreams, they are not only conveying personal messages, they are also reconnecting the initiate to ancestral wisdom, to the collective memory of the species, to the golden thread that unites all spiritual traditions. They say, in silence, "You are not alone. You are part of something much larger." And upon recognizing this language, dancing with its symbols, singing its sounds, and breathing its shapes, the disciple truly begins to awaken. Because more important than understanding the code is becoming the code, incorporating its vibration, living in accordance with the frequency it activates. And it's at this point that the journey shifts from being internal to manifesting in the external world. The signs materialize, the connections align, and then a new question arises. Is there any concrete evidence that all of this actually happened before? In the next stage, we will explore the silent evidence scattered around the world. Enigmatic records, artifacts, manuscripts, and sacred symbols that suggest that this language and this order have been operating for millennia, even if no one has noticed. The Order of Awakening has never raised grand temples, nor left treaties signed by its members. And yet, their traces are everywhere, visible only to those who have learned to see with the eyes of the soul. They are subtle yet eloquent evidences, etched in the stones of extinct civilizations, in the symbols repeated in ancient manuscripts, in the impossible similarities between myths separated by oceans. These proofs do not impose themselves. They invite, like whispers left throughout history, waiting for the right moment to be remembered. And that moment, perhaps, is now. In the deserts of Egypt, long before formal writing, there were already carved records suggesting practices of initiatory sleep. In specific tombs, the recurring image of reclining figures, surrounded by winged beings, receiving what appear to be symbols of light on their forehead and heart, can be found. The funerary texts describe the moment of death as a great sleep, where the being is instructed by the Neteru, the star gods. But the iconography suggests that this contact already occurred in life, during deep sleep. The idea of nocturnal spiritual instruction was encoded in the walls for millennia. Further to the east, in the ruins of the Indus Valley, There are inscriptions on stones that have never been deciphered, but they reappear on objects used in rituals. Some of these marks, surprisingly, have geometric patterns identical to symbols seen by initiates in contemporary dreams, mandalas with spiral centers, overlapping triangles, circular lines with mathematical repetitions. These inscriptions may not have been left to be read, but to be recognized by already prepared consciousnesses. An echo of the order crossing time. The apocryphal manuscripts, texts removed from the official versions of the scriptures, are also a hidden chest of revelations. In documents like the Book of Enoch, there are accounts of beings of light visiting humans in dreams, delivering forbidden knowledge, and instructing about the heavens. Meanwhile, in the Pistis Sophia, a Gnostic text from the 2nd century, it talks about mysteries transmitted in nocturnal visions to pure disciples. None of these texts were accepted by the religious canon, perhaps precisely because they expose too clearly the direct and intimate access to superior wisdom without institutional intermediaries. And what about the anomalous artifacts? Objects found in archaeological excavations that do not fit into the official historical timeline. There are metallic spheres with geometric markings, stone discs with unknown inscriptions, like the Phaistos disc, which remains undecipherable. There are also sculptures with eyeless faces, elongated bodies, and hands pointing to the sky. Among the Dogons, already mentioned, the knowledge of the star Sirius B precedes any known scientific observation. How to explain it, if not by contact? And what if this contact occurred during sleep, in a symbolic way, transmitting knowledge through the heart? Medieval churches, especially Gothic ones, conceal symbolism as precise as it is mysterious. Spiral-stained glass windows, hidden numbers in the architecture, and the constant repetition of images such as ladders, stars, and beings with sealed books. It's as if the builders, many linked to initiatory orders like the Templars and the Rosicrucians, were reproducing the content of sacred visions. Some scholars believe that these churches were designed based on lucid dreams shared by masters of the time, who met on subtle planes to outline the projects. The vibrational structure of the cathedrals was calculated to induce altered states, an invitation to awakening even in wakefulness. Indigenous records also point to this phenomenon. Peoples such as the Shipibo-Kanibo, the Hopi, and the Australian Aborigines speak of the dream time as the moment when the real world is generated. Their shamans enter a trance through nighttime rituals and receive instructions from star ancestors who deliver songs, geometric patterns, and visions. These practices are ancient, and the symbols received during these journeys coincide with many of those reported by disciples of the order, indicating a common matrix much earlier than the cultural fragmentation of humanity. A curious and seldom discussed fact: in various parts of the world, we find records about those who slept in the name of light. These are accounts of groups that practiced the so-called sacred sleep, where they would fall asleep with a spiritual purpose to receive prophetic visions, healings, or collective instructions. In the mysteries of Eleusis, in ancient Greece, initiates participated in nighttime rituals where it was said that the gods spoke in images. No one openly spoke about what they saw. The secret was absolute. But everyone came out transformed. The practice was the same: sleep as a portal, silence as a key. Modern initiatory orders, such as the Rosicrucian and the Universal White Brotherhood, continue to mention the existence of an invisible school that operates during sleep. Even the most esoteric teachings of these schools, when cross-referenced, reveal recurring patterns, use of symbols, specific times for sleep, breathing practices, and the presence of non-physical guides who transmit lessons that only come to fruition when experienced. Although wrapped in allegorical language, these descriptions align perfectly with the vibrational model of the Order of Awakening. Interestingly, even contemporary science is gradually beginning to encounter these boundaries. Neuroscience studies on lucid dreams, out-of-body consciousness, and brain plasticity suggest that there are levels of psychic processing during sleep that are not understood. Scientists like Carl Jung, though criticized in his time, already pointed to the universal archetypes that emerge in dreams and activate processes of individuation and awakening. Quantum physics itself, with its concept of entanglement and reality collapse by the observer, creates a conducive backdrop for accepting that consciousness can indeed operate outside of the body and time. What emerges from all this is a multifaceted yet coherent picture. The order did not leave a mark, it left hundreds, thousands, at different points in time and space. A spiral of symbols and signs that only now, with the advancement of collective consciousness, begins to reveal itself. And if it seems scattered, it's because the puzzle was designed to be assembled at the right time. And that time has come. The current initiates are the assemblers of this great sacred mosaic. Each dream is a piece, each intuition a connection, each recognition an activation. And in the face of so many clues, a subtle truth begins to emerge. Perhaps we were never alone. Maybe we've always been guided silently by this order that teaches without teaching, touches without appearing, and awakens without ever imposing itself. And now that the memory is ignited, it's impossible to return to the old state of forgetfulness. In the next stage, we will explore how, in the current world, this phenomenon continues to occur. Ordinary people, in different countries, report recent experiences that mirror ancient practices, dreams with symbols, nocturnal encounters, and an irresistible internal call. The order is reactivating its seeds. Although many imagine that the order's actions belong only to the distant past, what emerges with striking clarity is that it has never ceased. It has merely adapted to the times. And today, perhaps like never before, its presence pulses stronger, even if still invisible to the crowd's eyes. Reports multiply across the planet. Ordinary people, from different cultures, religions, and social levels, are beginning to describe nearly identical nocturnal experiences, lucid dreams with unknown symbols, encounters with beings of light, and a recurring feeling of inner mission. The order is reactivating its seeds, no longer in hidden temples, but within ready souls. With the advancement of technology and global communication, these experiences are no longer isolated cases. Spiritual forums, virtual communities, video channels, and online meditation groups have become fertile grounds for these stories to emerge. What was once kept secret for fear of judgment is now shared with startling naturalness. And most impressively, people who have never met report the same symbols, the same numerical patterns, the same visions, without ever having had prior contact. This phenomenon goes beyond coincidence. It is evidence of a unified field of instruction, a vibrational network of awakening on a global scale. Many of these accounts indicate that the reactivation begins subtly. Intense dreams with symbolic content, a feeling that something is about to happen, or frequent synchronicities, such as repeated numbers, unusual encounters, and strange physical sensations. Gradually, these signs intensify. The person begins to have insights during the day, feels an expansion in perception, and starts to notice invisible patterns in their own life. It's as if they are being guided by a silent intelligence, which repositions their trajectory without noise, but with absolute precision. Over time, dreams of instruction emerge. In them, the individual sees themselves within luminous structures, in contact with beings that do not communicate through words, but through vibration. Some describe circular chambers where they watch images projected as holograms. Others feel they are in a sort of extraterrestrial school where they learn concepts about time, energy, healing, and soul mission. Upon waking, they cannot translate the content, but they know instinctively that they have received something valuable. A code, a vibrational key, a new step. Modern science still hesitates to accept such experiences, but neuroscience now concedes that sleep is a state of intensive reality processing, an interface where consciousness operates on multiple levels. Quantum physics, with its paradoxes and entanglements, also begins to provide language to describe the impossible. And in this void between what can be proven and what can be felt, the order operates. It speaks through what does not fit, what challenges logic. It vibrates in the space where truth can only be recognized, never taught. It is on this frontier that vibrational communities emerge, groups that do not organize themselves by doctrines or physical structures, but by energetic harmony. These are people who, even though geographically distant, begin to meet in dreams. Upon talking afterwards, they discover identical details, the same symbol seen, the same music heard, the same luminous being present. These communities do not have leaders, nor rigid rules. What unites them is the inner call, the certainty that they are part of something bigger, which cannot be named, only lived. This modern reactivation does not require renunciations or complex rituals. It begins with the simple willingness to listen to the invisible, to respect one's own dreams, to observe the signs. By doing this, the individual sends a vibrational response that is recognized by the order. And then the contacts intensify. The person feels more inspired, more aligned with life, more connected to purpose. Decisions become clearer, the body responds with more vitality, and intuition becomes the main compass. It was not initiated by someone. It remembered itself. With the advent of guided meditation technologies, binaural frequencies, and quantum field studies, current conditions become ideal for amplifying this process. Many report that when using these resources consciously, they start to have more vivid dreams, deeper insights, and an unshakable inner presence. It's as if the order, which previously had to prepare its disciples at length in hidden temples, can now act directly, because humanity as a whole has begun to awaken. The field is more conducive, and souls respond more quickly. Even so, reactivation is not an escape from reality. On the contrary, it demands a profound commitment to life. The awakened are not called to withdraw from the world, but to inhabit it with greater awareness. The order does not separate them from society. It infiltrates them into it. As silent healers, as bridges between planes, as living transmitters of the frequency of truth. They live, work, love, suffer, and laugh like any human being. But within them, something vibrates differently, something that was reignited in the sleep chambers. Among these awakened ones, there is a silent understanding. The mission is not to convert, convince, or prove. It is to be the embodied code, to be presence, to be a channel, to be a mirror. The reactivation does not create passive disciples. It generates agents of transmutation, beings who, by simply existing in their truth, affect the field around them. Not through discourse, but through vibration. And for this reason, the signs of the order continue to appear, always at the right time, always for those whose soul is already in readiness. And now that we know that the order remains active, operating in the silence of the days and the depths of the nights, the inevitable question arises: what is the destination of this awakening? Where do these codes, these activations, this memory lead us? What is the ultimate purpose of the order in reactivating these beings in the world? In the next and final stage, we will put all the pieces together. Let's go to the final code, where everything is revealed, not as a definitive answer, but as a sacred call. After so many symbols, dreams, evidences, practices, and reactivations, what remains is the inner silence that precedes a great revelation. Because the true awakening is not made of answers, it's made of recognition. There is no end to this path. There is a point where all the pieces fit together, not as a formula, but as a state of being. And it is at this point that the final code manifests itself, not as a new symbol or a sacred figure, but as a radical perception. All of this has always been within you. The order did not come from outside. It was born with you. This is the order's best-kept secret. It is not external. It is a frequency of the soul that activates when you are ready to remember. And when this happens, the separation between master and student disappears. Between dream and reality, too, you realize you were not being taught, but awakened. The instruction was, in fact, a remembrance. The symbols were triggers for the truth you already knew, but had forgotten in the noise of the world. The final code is not knowledge, it is a rediscovered identity. Dreams, visions, numbers, and archetypes were merely tools of a higher intelligence to guide you to the center of your own being. With every symbol recognized, you drew closer to your essence. And this essence is silent, loving, and infinitely wise. It is where order resides. It is where messages are generated. There is no out there waiting for you. The temple is in the heart. The altar is your presence. The true initiation begins the moment you accept to be who you came to be. At this point, everything changes. The external world begins to respond differently. People appear in your path like mirrors. Synchronicities become the norm, and time loses its rigidity. It's as if you're being guided by an invisible thread, which doesn't show the destination, but ensures you're never lost. This thread is the final code in action. It doesn't need to be understood. It needs to be followed. And this following isn't about blind obedience, but lucid surrender. The order doesn't command. It suggests, it whispers, it trusts. For many, the final code manifests itself as an irrepressible calling, an urge to change cities, end a profession, start an art, found a project. Others feel it as a deep desire to simplify, to silence, to seek the essential. The format doesn't matter. What matters is the frequency. The final code pulses like an inner compass, always pointing in the direction of sacred authenticity. You align with what is true, and this transforms everything around you. At this stage, the disciple no longer seeks spiritual experiences. They live spirituality as a full existence. Each action becomes meditation, each choice a prayer. The everyday turns into a temple. The body becomes an instrument. Speech, a channel of healing. You no longer need to prove that you've awakened. Your presence speaks for itself. You become a living mirror of the order, transmitting its codes not with words, but with the simple fact of being, of radiating, of living in coherence. And this is where many understand the real purpose of the order, to prepare consciousnesses to be channels of light in times of transition. The world goes through cycles of forgetting and remembering, and in critical moments, like now, the order activates. It does not act en masse, but in a network. Each awakened being becomes a point of radiation, and when these points connect, even unknowingly, they form a vibrational mesh that supports the collective awakening. The final code is not a personal destination, it is a collective call. But this call does not come with labels or credentials. It doesn't ask you to believe, just to listen, to honor the soft voice that speaks when the world falls silent, to trust the impulses of the heart even when the mind doubts, to allow yourself to follow the thread of the invisible. The final code is a dance between surrender and awareness, between action and contemplation. It is the return to the point of origin, not as an escape, but as a full expression of the embodied soul. And so, the disciple becomes the master, not because they teach, but because they are an example. Not because they know more, but because they know how to listen. They no longer need validation, because they have found their inner truth. And this truth, once awakened, can no longer be forgotten. It echoes in every cell, vibrates with every breath, and manifests in every step. The final code is this: to live as one with the order, even amidst the chaos of the world, to be a lucid, loving, and transformative presence. And now that you've embarked on this journey, you may realize that you weren't just watching or listening to a story. You were recognizing yourself in it. Every symbol, every practice, every whisper was, in fact, a mirror of what already resides within you. The order merely awakened what was already yours by soul's right, and in that instant, without fanfare or ritual, you were initiated. The remaining question is not, was I called? The answer lies in the very fact that you've made it this far. The real question is, what are you going to do with it now? The final code doesn't ask for secrets. It calls for conscious action, radical presence, vibrant love. And if you decide to walk, know this: the order is already with you, silent, present, alive. Now I want to hear from you, unleashed mind. What has been coming to you in your dreams? Any mysterious symbol that repeats itself? An unexplainable feeling upon waking? Share in the comments what the most significant sign you've received during sleep was. Perhaps your experience will help another soul to remember. Remember, when you comment, you not only express, but also activate the collective field of the Order. We are together in this awakening. Even if we have never seen each other, we already recognize each other. And if you feel that this journey is just beginning, wait until you discover the knowledge that has been deliberately hidden for centuries. Click now on the next video on your screen. The Brotherhood of Light. The secret knowledge of Jesus that history erased. The missing link that could change everything you think about spirituality, history, and yourself. See you there, Mind Unfettered, where souls awaken and truth finds its voice.